Right, so that's the new, we must agree to being recorded. When Brooke comes back, I'll know that's complete on her end. Okay. So our fifth board member is feeling under the weather today, so I think we'll get started. It is 1 p.m. on June 15th, 2026. This is a meeting of the Land Use Review Board. I am Janet Hurley, the chair. I will ask board members to introduce themselves. Sarah?
Sarah Hadd, good afternoon.
Brooke?
Brooke Dingeldine, hello.
And Alex?
Alex Weinhagen. Hi, everyone.
And as I mentioned, Kirsten Sultan is under the weather today, so will not be joining us. Do we have any agenda updates from board members right now? Looks like no. And do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Is there anybody online there that has public comment on non-agenda items today? It appears no. So we can move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Alex. Do you want to move that with corrections or revisions to minutes that were circulated?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There were some revisions to the draft June 1 and May 28th minutes that were circulated. And is there a second to Alex's motion?
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm happy to second again with the clarifications provided.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And that is unanimous of board members present. Thank you. The consent agenda is adopted, or the items are adopted. The next item on the agenda is the Bennington Regional Plan pre-application meeting minutes. That is separate because Brooke is recused from that and so will not be voting on those minutes. Do I have a motion on those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
To approve those minutes of the May 29th meeting. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Any discussion? I think I circulated a couple of changes to those minutes as well, just for the record to the draft. And all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And abstaining?
Abstain, Brooke Dingeldine.
Thank you, Brooke. So that is 3 ayes and an abstention. Oh, because it's not unanimous and we are hybrid, I need to ask for a roll call vote. Sorry. So Sarah Hadd, your vote.
Sarah Hadd, I vote in favor.
Alex Weinhagen, your vote.
Also in favor.
And Janet Hurley, myself, I vote in favor. And Brooke Dingeldine.
I'm abstaining because I'm recused.
Thank you. Those minutes are adopted. So the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action on updated housing application review and prioritization under the Executive Order 06-25 guidance. That's a mouthful. So I have that on screen. I can share it. These were changes regarding transit route changes and how to deal with that. The board, so what is proposed here is that the mapping at the time of the passage of Act 181 is what determines whether the interim exemption applies. Is there any discussion on this, Alex?
Yeah, Janet, are we on the right item here? The agenda has us talking about the housing application review and prioritization under the executive order
Oh, this is
as a
interim.
separate
Sorry,
item from
I'm
the
confused.
interim housing exemptions.
Yep, so I opened the wrong document. Here it is. Sorry. So, sorry, let me backtrack. We're talking about the guidance under the executive order on housing. And there have been several changes proposed, highlighted in red here. These primarily revolve around the residential and commercial building energy standards and whether the 2020 or 2024 standards will be applicable for construction. And now that the rules process has been changed by under the Department of Public Service, both will be available to developers, and they would be able to choose whether they use the 2020 standards or the 2024 standards. So this these substantive revisions anyway here refer to that. Are there any questions or is there any discussion on these changes?
Sure. This is Alex, and I think in the last version of this, we talked about providing some guidance with regard to the ability of an applicant to request a change should the project have been tied to the 2024 standard, and they would like to have it be tied instead to the 2020 standard. And I don't see that language in here anywhere. This appears to be sort of a more economical version of the guidelines that doesn't go into that sort of hypothetical business. I'm fine with what's here as long as we all understand that an applicant has the option to come in and seek a permit amendment if they would like to be able to utilize the 2020 standards and under their current Act 250 approval are instead subject to the 2024 standards.
I thought we determined or I thought it was described to us that the permit decisions don't usually indicate because the standards in effect at the time of construction are what applies. Is that correct, Pete?
Yeah, that's correct. We went back and forth on this a little bit, and I think this was the ultimate way that the board was looking at it. I also did go back with legal about this to get kind of their read on that, whether the amendment process would be necessary. And I think ultimately the other factor to be considering about is it's probably going to be relatively limited of any potential permit where it does say a different standard than that's applicable here, in which case, yes, they could go through the amendment process if necessary.
Right, and so this has 3 alternatives for active pending applications for a permitted project where the construction commenced before July 14th of this year, and then for a permitted project that construction commences after July 14th. And the idea is that covers everything unless in the unlikely event that there is a permit that refers specifically to a particular set of standards, in which case, yes, an applicant may need to request a permit amendment if that is the case and they want to avail themselves of different standards than the permit suggests.
I'm fine with that. There's all sorts of permutations and scenarios, many of which are very unlikely, so it's probably not worth addressing them formally in the guidance. The one that I had thought about was a project that had commenced construction prior to July 14th of 2026, was therefore subject to the 2024 energy code, but the project was large enough that it was going to be built out over X number of years, and the developer might like to take advantage of the 2020 standards for later portions of the project that have not yet gone to construction, but were part of the Act 250 approval. And in that case, they just need to come for a permit amendment. So I'm good. I just don't want our guidance to confuse our district commissions when the one or the two applicants
Yeah.
that might actually happen to, come in for a permit amendment, and I don't think it will. So I'm
And
good.
I think
And
our
in that-
district coordinators can be key communicators about this. You know, our coordinators are aware of this and can assist people in getting what they need. Pete?
And I think the thinking, yeah, thank you. I think the thinking there too is in that scenario, Alex, the permit likely references that they would need to meet the applicable RBs or CBs at that time. And so even if they started with, the 2024 version and now they're, down the road in their project in a different phase, the applicable RBs or CBs may have changed based on that, and they could apply, and they could, without applying for an amendment, even apply the energy standard that is applicable at that particular time.
I see what you're saying, Pete. I hadn't read it that way, but now that you've illuminated my brain a little bit, I see that, yeah, the way it's written allows for that. So as long as it's clear, which I guess it seems like it is, yeah, I'm good. Thanks for parsing that for me.
Okay, do we have a motion on these guidelines?
Sure,
Move
I'll
to
move
approve.
to approve.
Ooh, I think Sarah beat you to it, Alex.
Well, then I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the executive order guidelines from anybody? I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so let's vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I only heard 3 ayes. Sorry. Sarah?
Aye.
Brooke?
Aye.
Janet? Aye. Alex?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the agenda. Next on the agenda is the interim housing exemptions guidance. So let's go back to that. I will share that screen again. And this is about the change in transit routes that was communicated to us from, it was the Chittenden County Transit Authority, right? What's it called now? Is that right?
Green Mountain Transit.
Green Mountain Transit, yeah. So the proposal is that the map the transit map as it existed at the time of the passage of Act 181 will determine whether the interim exemption is available. Brooke?
Would you be able to make this copy a little bit larger of the
Yes.
view that we're seeing? I'm having trouble reading it.
How's that?
Oh, much better. Thank you.
Okay. And part of the reason for this is that developers, sometimes it takes quite some time to get a permit. There's a lot of work that goes into planning and permitting a project. And, pulling the rug out from under them in the middle of that process could be problematic. So that was one reason for this. We could change our maps as transit routes change, but it doesn't, it seems, and we could assume that these may be the only changes that may occur before the expiration of these interim changes. However, this seemed the most fair and efficient way to deal with this. What do other board members have thoughts to share on this? Brooke?
Yeah, I agree with that because, developers need to plan and the timelines are significantly long. So we would not want to pull the rug out from under that planning process. However, what if the transit routes are altered the other direction? And so I just don't want to foreclose the ability to change the maps if there were additional routes that were established. And we could deal with that as it comes up, I suppose, in the future.
We could, as a matter of fact, these are guidelines. If we are made aware of a new line, then we could perhaps react with a changed map at that point and revised guidelines. I agree. Any other comments from board members? Alex?
I'm happy to go that way, but I think it wouldn't take much additional language to address Brooke's concern. The sentence in question where there's some track changes says the housing project may be located anywhere within a qualifying parcel. Then the next sentence says mapping at the time of Act 181's passage on June 17, 2024 is sufficient to determine whether a project qualifies as within the exemption area. Couldn't we just add a phrase in there saying at the time of Act 181's passage on June 17, 2024, as well as any subsequent expansions, comma, is sufficient to determine?
I think we possibly could. What do other board members think? Sarah's giving a thumbs up. Brooke, do you think that would address your situation, your scenario?
I think that's wordsmith very well, Alex. I appreciate that and would endorse it.
Pete, are you the keeper of these this red line version?
Yeah, and I jotted Alex's suggestion down so we can implement that if that's
So
the board wants to go.
comma after 2024.
Yep.
And then or
as well as any subsequent expansions. Is that
as
the
well as any
phrase?
subsequent expansions. Okay. Okay. So any other discussion of this, Sarah?
If you're ready for a motion, I'm happy to make one.
I am, or I think I am. Let me just ask if there is any. Well, go ahead, Sarah.
So with the changes that were just discussed, I would make a motion to approve the document with incorporating those changes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alex. Any further discussion on the interim exemptions guidance from anybody? Okay. We will vote then. Well, I'm just going to ask for a roll call vote. Sarah Had.
Sarah Had, I vote aye.
Alex Weinhagen.
Yep, this is Alex, voting aye in the affirmative.
Thank you. And Brooke Dingeldine.
Brooke Dingeldine is voting aye as well.
And I am Janet Hurley, and I am voting in the affirmative as well. That is unanimous. With that added phrase, we will adopt these revised guidelines. And Pete, I presume you can get that finalized in terms of accepting changes and get it out to the appropriate, or get it posted in the appropriate place.
Yep, yep, we'll make sure the
Okay.
communication gets out there as well as posting on the web.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is a discussion of the draft Bennington Regional Plan pre-application response. And Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you. I believe you're going to share screen.
Yes, I am. So I think Brooke has her hand up though before
Oh,
you
I'm
turn
sorry,
over to me.
Brooke. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm recused from this matter due to my professional
right.
obligations. So I'm happy to either exit the meeting or go at least offline.
So
whatever
we'll
the-
call you back when we're done. How about that?
Very good. I will await the summons.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
See ya. Okay, got to remember to call Brooke back when we're done.
Very good. All right, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule, but I do see that Nick from BCRC is online with us. So because I think we're targeting 1:35 and we're almost 15 minutes ahead of schedule. So, so what I'd like to do before I share my screen was on the website is a PDF with the draft pre-application response with areas highlighted in yellow that were areas for discussion. Janet provided a markup prior to the meeting with some areas that she would like to discuss as well. So I'd like to share that one. And I will note before I share screen that her markups are shared in track changes, and I will go over those. And we can discuss all the above. So with that, I will share screen. I'll make this a little bit larger because there are comments, so that usually shrinks it down, but how is that looking for everybody? Janet, Alex?
Good, I can read it.
Okay,
Looks good.
all right. So, and I will say that the areas that are the teal highlight are areas that once the board was to adopt, we would have to go back and fill out. So overall, I think we're asking for some additional information or some minor changes, but we are deeming that I believe just about everything is compliant. Thank you, Janet. I think the first thing that I'll highlight is you caught a typo here where the shell language was left in, so we'll delete that or because we only meant for the first part of that sentence. And I'm happy to stop or slow down or go back to other areas, but I'm going to focus on the changes. I think there's just some wordsmithing on goal 3. Janet, I think this is the next area that you had about goal 4, and we are inclusive of VTrans comments on this. I think VTrans provide comprehensive comments, including around tier 1A and the traffic transportation impact fees. I provided that in context to try and frame it, but I think what your comment here is the board endorsing it. Janet. You're muted.
Janet.
Sorry. I'm good to endorse the agency's comments, and what I think we need to do is write this as a recommendation, an advisory recommendation, unless we want it to be a required revision. And I don't think we need to restate the agency's comment like this. I think we can just refer to the exhibit number. So, what do you
agree.
the rest?
In this particular instance, my comment is that we do recommend I recommend that we also reference and concur with the supportive VTrans comments. But I also recommend, shortening this up and then, basically speaking as the board in terms of the support for these sections that are included in the plan, and then referencing the VTrans comment, referencing the exhibit is one way to do it. There is an advisory recommendation after this sort of opening supportive paragraph. And Janet, I think you had commented that there isn't really a recommendation in that paragraph. And I agree. I think VTrans is just stating a factual situation
Right,
regarding the Act 145 transportation impact fees. And I think perhaps in a couple of our early regional plan reviews, we may have mentioned that
We did.
and recommended that the plan be modified to recognize that issue. I'm not sure that we've consistently done that as we've moved forward, as we've sort of come to understand that this is just a factual situation, that the report that was done is complete on this issue. So I'm not sure we need it, but I would encourage you to just look back at a couple of the early plans, Rutland Northwest, and see how we handled it there.
Well,
Before we
I
make-
did.
Okay.
And what I would say is those were prior to the legislative session, and there's actually the 145 study committee that was concluded back in December. And so those pre-applications had language prior to that. And so I think VTrans has been a little bit more refined in this. I would agree that we have not applied this evenly. I liked what they had to say around it, and we could just shorten that, take it out of being an advisory recommendation and put it into the findings portion. I think that could be sufficient, but,
what do you
Janet,
mean
what do you
by,
think?
well, what do you mean by the findings portion?
So up above about prior to the draft plan appears to be consistent with goal 4, we could include it in that dialogue instead. I don't think that
Well,
it needs to be.
no, I don't think so, because what we're saying is it's not in the plan. That
Correct.
finding is for what is in the plan. If you have a recommendation to add that, then I would just say, add that as an advisory recommendation. Add that you would like the plan to address X.
Yeah, it's just
Right?
not worded. It's not worded that way right now.
Right.
It appears Sarah has this worded to just acknowledge that this is an issue that VTrans has
Right.
raised, not that the plan
Right.
needs to be revised to mention it, but rather that it's just something for them to know about. So I tend to think we don't need it in there at all. Or if we do, it can go up in the prior paragraph with just a pointer saying, the regional commission is, encouraged to review exhibit blah from VTrans regarding Act 145, not because they need to
Right.
revise the plan, just because it's a point of information.
Correct. That's what I would prefer to do because I'm not sure at this point. We are now aware of any tier 1As within the area for which this would be mostly applicable. So I'm fine to take that route, Alex, and come back and rework this. So if you guys are okay, I'll continue to move on to goal 5. All right.
Yep.
I think you just had some typo language there too, revision, and I think you had in here about, is this a statutory citation? Is it referring to a board recommendation? So it was be my recommendation that to the board that we consider recommending that the scenic roads and bridges be included in the transportation infrastructure potentially.
So I would
So-
just say, consider mapping these resources or including these resources on map 25.
Yeah, however, later on in the transportation element, there's a recommendation to not include as much in map 25 because it's a very difficult
right.
map to interpret. So it can't be
Right.
quite that the solution isn't quite that easy, but perhaps a little dovetailing with the transportation element of the
Well, maybe
plan.
not mentioning map 25, just saying, consider mapping scenic roads and bridges.
Yeah, that would work too. I think my comment later on when this will come up again was if there are a substantial number of scenic roads and bridges, then probably does make sense to have a separate map. And if there's, one of each, maybe plan narrative is enough and a
Oh,
map element is not
There are
necessary.
several covered bridges and at least 3 scenic roads, if not more.
So maybe a separate map then.
Yeah.
Sarah, I hate to back you up, but back in goal 4, there were 2 items. There was an advisory recommendation section that we discussed, and then there was a
Correct.
requested additional information section.
Yes.
We sort of jumped over that one.
Okay.
And my perspective on that requested additional information, Janet's point was that, I think, Janet, your point was that when we ask for additional information, it's usually because we're making a finding that we cannot determine whether the plan meets that particular statutory requirement, and therefore we're asking for additional information. So if we're going to determine that it does meet this goal 4, then we should probably get rid of that requested additional information section and maybe put it, if we really do need some of it, put it in the transportation element later in this response letter.
Or it could also be an advisory recommendation.
I suppose, yes. Yeah, but it could be that too. It could be advisory recommendation to, add to the plan that additional information. My comment on this particular section was only that the way it's worded here, it says that the plan should provide indications of priorities of transportation needs, and the plan does do that on page 218. What it does not do is indicate costs or methods of financing, and
Right.
that's mentioned again in the transportation element, much later in this draft
Okay.
response letter. So we're kind of talking about it in 2 sections, but we're talking about it a little differently. We're implying in this section that they don't have any priorities listed when they actually do. So I think, Sarah, as I talk through this, I'd prefer to just delete it from this section entirely.
Yeah.
Just state that they meet the goal 4, and then address it with more specificity in the transportation element later in the letter.
Right, because I believe what was being said would absolutely, they haven't listed the priorities, but to have it be listed inclusive of costs, method of financing, what have you, would be a bit more powerful. So understand we can reword that later, and this we can perhaps just remove for the time being. All right. I'll go back to goal 6. I think you had a comment, Janet, here about technical recommendations, a separate document. All right, so just to spend a minute on that is, I think we have not heard the final word on this yet from our staff in terms of what is the recommended course. I hear the recommendation that we be inclusive of everything within this document that we wish to convey to the RPCs and not have separate documents, and particularly stay away from individual board members having their own recommendations. What I would say on some of these more sort of typo fixes and other things, word smithing, is I'm fine to remove them in the final version, leave them here in this draft version to make the RPCs aware of them. So as we go through the rest of the document, if board members would like some of this to be removed, I'm happy to remove it or leave it in. But for right now, I think the document needs to be inclusive of them until we change our practice on a larger scale. Is that okay for everyone?
That works for me for the moment. My comment on this was, it depends on how many there are, right? If there
Correct.
are 8, typos and sort of technical corrections, it makes sense to just wrap them into this document, right? And just give them a heads up, like we saw a typo here, there's a figure without a number here. If there are 108 identified typos and technical corrections, they do not belong in this document, and a separate addendum would make sense to me. As a way to just help the RPC. It's not a compliance issue. It's just we have more eyes on this, and we're just telling you we happen to spot something. So I think it can work either way, but I agree with you, Sarah, that we haven't formalized our practice on this. And so I think in past regional plans, we've been providing separate technical typo sorts of compilations, either from a separate board member or multiple board members. And we should figure out what we're really going to do on that going forward. But on this document, having read through the entire letter, I think it's teetering on the edge. Like there's enough of them that it's more than 8, but they're certainly not 108. Maybe there's 20 or so. And so it might be just as easy to leave them all in and let it go on this one,
So-
the way it is.
There are more once we get to the maps in terms of corrections, so why don't we hold that thought? I can leave this in for the time being and we can move on.
Okay.
All right, goal 7, I think we had the count to county. I think that was the same comment there, Janet, about technical. Then I think you offered some clarification here, thank you. So I think this is, instead of being requested additional, it's advisory. So that would be a minor change. 8, I think this is wordsmithing again. So I'm going to
I
keep
liked
on.
it. I appreciated it. Keep going.
Okay. Goal 9, I think is clean. Goal 10, I believe we get into some wordsmithing here. Hopefully. Alex, are you good with the?
I'm fine with that. Yep, I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Goal 11 is clean. Goal 12, we have a little bit of wordsmithing, just pretty minor here. And also the numbering of advisory recommendations. Anything on goal 12?
I don't know, did we number recommendations in previous ones, or did we just bullet them?
Oh,
Can't
that's a good
remember,
point.
but
I think
because there are sub bullets, I just put numbers, so.
I think we've done it both ways, so I'm
Okay.
fine with this method.
Okay,
I don't think it matters. This is not as formal as the final decision. So
yeah,
I'll move on to goal 13, the childcare provision. Again, that's clean. Flood resilience, that's clean. Goal 15, environmental justice. We had some requested additional information, which is now an advisory recommendation. And thank you for putting a little bit more polish on this, Janet, in terms of the solid waste facilities. I think you had a comment here about
technical
correction,
corrections, yeah.
so a minor just changing of words, but I think it's worthwhile to leave in.
yeah, I thought all of those were good.
Okay. I'll keep on trucking and moving into B. I think we're clean. And then moving into here, I think you just renumbered. Or did you have a?
I
There
think it
a
was all
substantive
one
comment
paragraph.
here, actually.
What is
And
that you said, Alex?
There was a substantive comment that Janet made about whether these deserve to be in a technical addendum again, but also maybe eliminating number 3, which I agree with. I think the plan organization is
Yeah.
fine, and I don't think we should comment on clarifying sections versus chapters.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll move on to C. And a bit of wordsmithing, otherwise I think we're okay. D, statement of basic policies. natural resources working lands. And just a wordsmith there from Janet. And then under advisory recommendations, I think you did a bit of shortening up and clarifying here. And then you changed, instead of additional information, I believe that's going to be advisory recommendation is consider discussion of forest blocks and habitat connectors as distinct features in the natural resources chapter. Any comments under natural resources?
I was good with all those edits with your wording and Janet's edits, so thanks. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on into energy. Not a charged conversation there. That's just completely clear. Transportation. We have just a little bit of wordsmithing there. And I think here, Janet, you had, they appear to be V-Trans comments. All right, so this is the area that needs to get cleaned up per previous. So I'll leave a note there to,
Yeah, I would say that numbers 1 and 2 are not related to our prior discussion about whether priorities are in the plan for transportation infrastructure. These numbers 1 and 2 really are just factual information that V-Trans provided. They don't recommend the plan change. It's just,
Right.
it feels like it's V-Trans telling the RPC, like, just be aware of these things, which to my mind, we don't need these in the response letter. So
Right.
if you want to include like a sentence and refer to an exhibit in the earlier portion of the text, that's fine. Or in this case, these two could probably just be eliminated.
Yep.
I trust the
I would agree.
RPC will read V-Trans's comments, so I don't know that
Yeah.
we need to reiterate all of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, and then I think here's where we need to do some,
Yes,
clarification.
yes,
And-
because
and
I
so-
agree with
so we could
V-Trans's
just-
recommendations here
Yeah.
on number 4, and we just need to put them in our own voice.
So we already did, I'm crossing off number 3 because I think that that's fine in the previous section. And then
No,
I think,
we decided not to fix it in the previous section, but to wait to hear, I thought.
I did the converse and in the
Oh, okay.
previous section, I just said that it should be included in the mapping. So I think here
Oh.
really, the only thing that we're saying under advisory recommendation here is about the mapping of major highway numbers and road names. Are we okay with asking that some of the mapping, it doesn't need to be specifically map 25, but that those be included somewhere within the mapping?
Yes, it's okay with me.
Okay, fantastic. I will keep on moving on then. And I think this was about asking that map 26 include bus stops in regional terminal facilities.
Yeah, and I'm not convinced that that's necessary at a regional scale. But Janet, you're much more familiar with the region than I am. Do you think do you think it's necessary to have a map showing that?
I'm not sure what they mean by regional terminals and transfer facilities. You know, like there's a bus that goes from Burlington to Albany a couple times a day, and it stops in Manchester and Bennington. And then there are buses that go from Rutland to Manchester to link up with the, you know, the regional transit. I don't know.
I don't think
So-
this, I think we should delete this. I don't think we should be asking the Regional Planning Commission to figure out how to map something that isn't going to look, isn't going to be interpretable on a regional map and can be adequately described in the text of the plan.
Yeah, I agree
Having
with that,
every bus
Alex.
stop on a map, that's not important at the
Well,
regional
in-
plan.
I think just with the previous conversation the board had today too, where these things are changeable, just even over the past year or two
Right.
is, I'm fine with deleting this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, great.
All right, so I think this is just advisory. I'm going to
Having
keep
some
going.
map insets. Yep.
And then 6, Janet, I think you reworded this to cost estimates, which is the thing that we eliminated in the previous section, but we're putting here. And I think the way that this is worded now is reflective of, I think what we want to say here is
The board concurs with the Agency of Transportation to recommend including cost estimates, something like that. Well, let's not request it. We're just asking them to consider including it. Because if we're requesting it, it means that we're determining that it doesn't look like it complies. Right?
Right, that's been our
Yeah.
framing of each of
Yep.
these decisions. But I think it does beg the question, does it comply? Because the standard says that the transportation element is supposed to include recommendations to meet future needs for transportation facilities with indications of priorities of need, costs, and method of financing. So
maybe we are requesting more information in that case. And
I think we should the three of us should talk about that right now. Do we want
Yeah.
to say that the draft regional plan, we cannot determine if the draft regional plan meets this requirement, and here's the additional information we need relative to cost and method of financing and prioritization, or not? I think that would be cleaner. I know
Yeah.
we like to tell people it's good, just maybe here's some helpful hints. But on this one, I think maybe it's we're not sure it is good. We really do
Yeah.
need to see some prioritization and cost, not dollars and cents necessarily. I like the VTrans comment about cost in a
So
qualitative sense.
So Sarah, I would cut 6 and paste it above the advisory recommendations as a requested information, because when we're requesting information, it should come before the advisory. So right after the statement of whether it appears to comply.
I agree. That would be the appropriate location with a new bold,
So,
subheader
yeah.
saying requested information, or
Right.
I forget if that's the subheader we used in other pre-application
Yes,
responses.
it is requested additional information. So
Interesting, in the shell requested additional information follows advisory recommendations, but you'd
I
like
know
this.
that was an earlier version of the shell. I fixed that in a later one.
Well, this was the shell that was hot off the presses that I got from Rebecca, like within the
Oh.
past week, so
That's
You might wanna
interesting.
catch
Yeah.
up with her, right?
Yeah.
So
So,
requested additional
um,
information, the board,
The board that the RPC provide cost estimates in each of the improvement priorities. Yep. And then that previous sentence, we want to say the board does not have the adequate information to determine whether the
Yeah,
regional plan.
we can let Sarah wordsmith
Yeah.
that based on what the shell says, because there
Yeah.
should be clear language in the shell optionally, like it either appears to meet the requirement or does not, or requires more information. But you got it, Sarah. You're
yeah, I'm gonna highlight, I'll get back to this.
Okay, great.
excellent.
I think that was just some wordsmithing there under 7. So move on to utility and facilities. I think we're
Looks
in
good.
good shape.
Yep.
And here we get to my first highlight for discussion. So we have under implementation is, Alex, I think this was your comment about recommending it, including additional columns in the implementation matrix to identify which implementation items address the top 2 areas. I think we could go with that or we could not.
I'd go with it.
Yeah.
It's just a recommendation.
Okay.
So here's, I think it's worth discussing in the same fashion as the last item we did, because I think the statutory requirement is that the plan include a recommended investment strategy for regional facilities and services. I'm not sure that the implementation section, either the matrix or the other portion that was cited, does that. So it could be advisory,
I
or it could be
recall-
another, we're not sure that this meets the standard. Here's additional information we'd like to see.
I recall the staff speaking to this, and they wanted to focus on what could be done within the 8-year timeframe of the plan. But you don't recall that there were any time horizons for.
I definitely recall that. I also recall giving them a compliment that they included within the body of the plan, not just in the matrix, these sections of what BCRC can do. And so I think all of that is helpful. But when I reread the statutory language under this element, it says including a recommended investment strategy for regional facilities and services based on a capacity study of the elements in this section. I don't need to see a capacity study, but I think when I think of the words recommended investment strategy, I think I want to see more than just a list of the things you're going to do, but also include some indication of how you're going to invest in doing them. I can be convinced otherwise. Upon reading it again, I thought perhaps this was you need to do
Yeah.
more.
I think that's a departure from our previous reviews at this point. I don't really, and I also can't recall at this point because we've gotten so many more plans that I've started reading as to whether it's true that this Regional Planning Commission did not address that. So I think, I don't know.
So
Prefer to
I
leave it
think
as
it's
an
there.
advisory.
It's
Yeah.
there. It's just not comprehensively put together. And so that's why I was opting for it being an advisory recommendation. I
Yeah.
Like I
think,
said, I'm fine with that. I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure we had the discussion and, we're holding the appropriate feet to the appropriate warm
Fire.
places. Well, I wasn't going to say
Okay.
fire, but
Okay.
warm areas.
Okay.
so I think the next thing that we had was under compatibility with other plans. Janet, you commented, is the assessment that we need more information to determine the plan's compliant at this point? If not, then call this advisory recommendation instead. So I wanted to hear how others are feeling on compatibility with other plans portion.
So whose comment was this and what does that person think? This was not
was
something
mine.
that, okay,
And that was just a bit more flesh on the bones would be useful in terms of, I think the overall review on this is that everything is copacetic with the additional areas, but it would be nice to have a more detailed analysis in terms of maybe, and this is a tough area too, right? Because you have New York on one side and Massachusetts on the other. So it's not like you're just in some of these other areas saying, oh, Addison County across the line from Chittenden County is rural general and Chittenden is transition. It's hard for them to do that analysis with different states. So I
right.
felt like it was meeting the goal, and just some additional information would be helpful.
So, I'm looking at the viewer right now, and at least for the abutting Rutland and Wyndham Regional Commissions, it looks entirely compatible. Almost like there wasn't a boundary there. So in terms of the other two states, that's a different matter, but it looks pretty damn good for
Vermont side.
yeah.
So my perspective is a little different. I think the reality is probably the most important thing. So I appreciate Janet doing the reality check.
Don't use that.
But I think it's the plan's job to assess it and talk about it. And I agree with Sarah that the plan doesn't really do that effectively. It's funny. I actually found this section of the plan really enjoyable to read. Like it's informative and it tells me something about how, this region relates to the Rutland region, but it didn't actually do the traditional thing of saying, this is what our plan envisions for the area adjacent to Rutland, and this is what Rutland is planning, and they are in fact consistent. Like they didn't really, at least I didn't see that. So although it seems like they are based on the reality of it, it would be nice if the plan specifically addressed it rather than just providing a nice read about the two different areas. So I would tend to say maybe the plan that we cannot determine that the plan meets this requirement and that we would like additional information or additional information and analysis.
Okay, so for that, Sarah, you just need to change the previous sentence.
Well, Janet, you and I have a conversation as I said, I'm fine with saying that it meets the analysis. It would be great to have additional information. I think you were in that camp too, so we don't have to be unanimous in this, but did what Alex say change your mind, Janet?
I cannot recall how the plan, I would have to reread that section.
Well, I mean, we have time, right? We could look at it right now. Sarah does a good job of providing the sections and
Yeah.
page numbers.
Right.
So we could look
So
at
I
that section
could-
quick.
Yeah,
Yep, I have let me just get to it and then
Okay.
I'll put it up. Scroll to the right page. 344, was that it?
yeah,
Yeah,
That's where it
that's where it
starts, yep.
starts. Yeah. And honestly, the first few pages are mostly about municipal organizations or entities and local organizations. And then it starts talking about the other regions on page 350.
And then, hang on.
Okay, 350. Okay. Okay, that paragraph right before the Rutland region. Okay.
I have to say, reading it again, even though I just read it this morning, and looking at the statutory requirement, I think maybe I was wrong. I think maybe they've done it.
Yeah,
The statutory
talk about
requirement is
coordinating.
indicating how the regional plan relates to development trends, needs, and plans for adjacent municipalities and regions. And that is what this section is doing. It is talking about how it relates to, not necessarily how they are consistent or inconsistent or it's a different way of doing it than what I've seen in other regional plans, but I think it's sufficient.
I'm gonna stop
And
sharing,
so
if that's
then
all
it
right.
does talk about Massachusetts and New York as well.
I agree with Sarah that it doesn't include the typical sort of land use blow by blow differentials, but that could probably be an advisory recommendation.
Janet, are you good with me stopping sharing screen on this and going back to the
I'm
other
just
document?
curious to see what it says about New York quickly. Scroll one more page, maybe. Yeah, Rensselaer and Washington counties. Yeah. Okay. Good enough. Yeah. So Alex is backing down. Advisory recommendation.
They say that the true sign of having an open mind is the ability to change it. So I'd like to change my mind and declare I have an open one.
Thank you, Alex.
Yep.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for bearing with me because my meeting screen like goes right over the comments, and so I have to, if you're wondering why I'm like moving things around oddly on your end.
It's okay.
Okay,
We're following.
all right, so we're into housing now. And I think you had a comment here.
Yeah. Technical addendum.
Wait.
I see that my include needs to be corrected there. Has a,
Yep. And the word loads is loans.
Where are
low
we?
interest loads, yeah, before the last
Yep,
sentence. Okay,
so are we okay with both of these being just
Yeah.
advisory? Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
Alex, anything under housing?
No.
Okay. Economic development, I think you probably had the same comment here, Janet, about just technical.
Yeah, I would bullet them out though. It's actually a couple advisory recommendations and just maintain the same formatting that we decide on for the rest, numbered or bulleted.
Flood resilience. I thought that was in pretty good shape. Janet made some
Yep.
minor typo
Looks
corrections.
good.
And then I think we have a formatting here under future land use with bulleting.
Oh, and then instead of requested information there, I took that off and called it advisory
Advisory.
unless we are, yeah.
All right, downtowns and village centers. There's one downtown, which is
Proposed.
Bennington, and I have the future land use map up and available. We can zoom to different things as we go through this.
Actually, so do I, Sarah, so that you wouldn't have to
Okay.
go back and
Oh, well,
forth.
thank you.
So,
But I think Bennington downtown was pretty straightforward. Anything though that anybody has? Okay. Village centers, we have some areas highlighted in yellow. I'm going to try and stop on those, but Janet, you had requested more information about the South Dorset as opposed to Neatset.
yeah,
And this was an area that I had highlighted in yellow, and A&R had some comments. Board members had comments. And it was that behind the town offices, which was one of our site visits, that Raptor Lane parcel, and some of the planning around some of those RTs in that area. So
I appreciate the Department of Fish and Wildlife's sort of technical side of this. However, I think there's a larger issue in play from a planning perspective, and that is the future land use map out ahead of the town's planning on this front?
Right.
Like the town has done some impressive work and owns a significant chunk of this proposed new village center. The construction of the town office within it is shows some commitment. But when I look at their town plan and their zoning, like it doesn't reflect this. So it feels awkward to approve a new village center in a regional plan for which it isn't yet reflected in the municipal plan. So I'm a little leery about that. And I know town officials probably are moving in that direction, but municipal plans mean something. It really should be reflected
Yeah.
there.
I agree with Alex on this, and I know that Dorset did pursue a study recently that I can't remember if it was referenced in the regional plan though. They've clearly done some planning work, but it's not in the town plan. And I think I asked this at the meeting, and I think Nick, if you're still with us, you said that that they're working on revisions to the town plan, but we don't see them yet.
Yep, they have an expiring town plan next year, so they will be undertaking revisions to the town plan sometime in the next year or so. So yeah, they haven't, just because that a lot of this happened right around when they were doing the most recent town plan revision, knowing that the first efforts on this started in about 2015, and they didn't make it into whatever that next revision was. I guess it must have been 2018 or 2019, something like that. So yeah, for lack of them having done that at that stage, this would be incorporated in the next town plan that'll be undertaken in about a year.
So given that that's not yet done, I think that at least two board members here have reservations about identifying this as a center at this point. And so we are, at least two of us here are requesting more information in order to be able to determine that that is appropriately mapped as a center.
So
Is that
Janet,
right? Yeah.
Janet, I would say that these are, I wrote this and included it for a reason. These are also my concerns.
Okay.
I think you and Alex have articulated it. So I think we do have language in here saying what our concerns are. Please provide additional information or map this as a different future land use
Okay.
area. So I think we're all in
I
agreement
think we
on
need
that.
to change the conclusion though, Sarah. It should, instead of saying the proposed South Dorset Village Center appears
think
to
I
meet the
did.
statutory
Yeah.
standards, it should, you
I
changed it,
changed
okay.
it.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
We look forward to
So-
sending that information, or all relevant information to inform this decision. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank
And
you. So I
so
think
The
we're
advisory
good.
recommendation, Sarah, wouldn't be advisory, it would be, requested additional information. So yeah,
Yep.
just modify that. Okay, very good. Onward. I'm looking
think
at
we're-
the version
think
of
we're in
your
good shape.
document from before. So it's a little hard for me going back and forth with this one you're actively editing, but keep going. You're doing a great job.
Okay. So I think I'll revisit that, but are we okay with Dorset for the time being? I'll move on to Landgrove. So Landgrove, I believe meets the statutory definitions. Every place may have a village. And there was a board member that wanted it to possibly be considered a hamlet instead of a village. So I brought that up for discussion
Was-
today.
That was me, Sarah, and it wasn't that I wanted it to be a hamlet. It was an observation that it appears to be more of a hamlet than a village center. I'm not opposed to
Yeah.
having it be shown as a
And-
village center.
And I I agree that it looks more like a hamlet, but all towns are afforded the opportunity of naming, of identifying a center. And I think if Landgrove wants to do that, we should let them.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. So you can strike the wording after the bold underlined version.
Yeah, already did.
You already
Okay.
did, right? Multiple
right.
documents.
Next up is the Manchester Village Center in the town of Manchester. Thank you, Janet, for continuing to help clarify that. Which, I think this was your comment, Janet, about consider it for a downtown. I also agree that this is an area that, it looks like it could be a downtown, more so than a village center. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine with that. As long as it's advisory. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And I think, Janet, you had a clarification around North Bennington about advisory recommendation, as opposed to additional information. That's fine. I think the next area that I had for sort of a board discussion was the Peru Village Center, which was consider reducing the northeastern extent of the village center to better match the land use map and the Peru town plan. Janet, I think that was your comment. My comment here as an alternative was the Legacy Village Center has substantial flood hazard area. The center future land use area expands to the northeast of the village outside the flood hazard area and provide additional information around. So I think either would probably be advisory, not additional
wanna-
information.
Does anyone want to see that?
Alex, I'm fine, but if,
I don't need to see it. No, I reviewed it.
So which are we? We're going with advisory or with the additional information requested?
I think it's just one or the other in terms of or we could
So-
put them together and say, provide additional information about the proposed northeast expansion, how it's supporting the municipal plan, or consider reducing.
I don't have a concern on this front. So
Yeah,
Janet, this
me
is
neither.
your suggestion. I think it's fine for the village center to be larger than what's shown in the town plan. And there are reasons for it and we don't need to go into those. So I don't think we need to have any recommendation or additional information, frankly, for Peru. But
Right,
if
and
you-
I'm
if you
actually
do-
not sure that I meant to make that for the village center, because I don't see, I don't see flood hazard. Oh, yeah, I don't see flood hazard.
My
So-
comment was the one about flood hazard.
Oh,
You may be referencing either river corridor or a wetland. There is a
There-
bunch of wetland.
right, but it's
River corridor.
mapped as conservation in the middle of the center.
Correct. So my comment, which was the latter, was that there is a legacy village center, but it has river corridor, flood hazard in it. And so the expansion of the village center beyond the legacy, I felt like was appropriate because it was increasing the village area out adjacent but outside of the river corridor flood hazard area.
Can
Yeah,
I'm not
concerned about
understanding
At
this.
all.
Can I?
The distances we're talking about here are relatively small. And the village center itself is relatively small. So I think I'm fine with Peru as it's currently delineated for a village center.
You're deleting,
Can I show the screen? I'm not understanding what the issue is here.
you can share the screen, but I think we've resolved it.
Oh, okay. Well, can you see that?
I can see it.
So we're talking about this area
That would be northeast. Yep.
and not extending it to here because of these
No,
wetlands?
no.
I mean, to
So-
me, it seems fine that they're there because they're not included in the village center, except for this little bit.
Correct. You're saying something different. I think there was a concern raised by a board member about the expansion area being too much beyond the legacy area. And what I summarized was, I didn't believe that that was too much, because once you subtract out the river corridor flood hazard area, it's really not a lot of information, or not a lot of area altogether.
Yeah, and I apologize. This was my comment, so I'm
I was gonna say, I don't
flip-flopping.
remember this being my
Yeah.
comment.
It's mine. I had to look back
Okay.
to see, and it's related to checking up on the Peru town plan and it not being consistent. And like I said, I'm fine with it now. Sorry to
Okay.
have belabored the point.
Well, can you confirm that the town plan does look at this as center?
Well, I think what I confirmed earlier, which drove my initial concern, is that the town plan shows the village center as not including the area to the northeast of that large
Okay,
wetland complex.
I see.
But I I'm okay now. I don't have that concern any longer.
Well, I had a similar concern about the village area because the town plan doesn't seem to
We'll
indicate.
get to that
Okay,
later, but
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen back again. And I'm gonna mark that complete and move on
Sarah.
to Pal now. Can everybody see that?
yeah,
All right, so in South Pal now, we have an advisory recommendation to consider expanding the village center to the northwest along Main Street and Lincoln Street, or mapping this area as village area. The area appears to be part of and integral to the village, or consider adjusting boundaries to match parcel lines. No, sorry, that's inclusive. So both of that together is the recommendation, advisory recommendation for South Pal now. How is everybody on that?
That was my suggestion, and on this one, I'm actually fine with what I previously suggested. So I won't argue with myself again not on this
Janet,
one.
are you fine
So
with that
let
as
me-
well?
consider expanding the village center to the northwest along Main Street and Lincoln Street, or mapping this as village area. This area appears to be part of and integral to the village.
I think it's transition right now.
I'm looking at South Pownell and I don't see that. There's just a minute. So is this not South Pownell?
Is it Pownell Center? Did I put it in the wrong position? It might be Pownell Center. Hang on.
Yeah, it
Pownell
was tough.
Center, I don't see transition anywhere near any of the Pownell. Oh, it is south. There's a bunch of transition south of South Pownell Village. So,
So you referenced Main Street and Lincoln Street. I think I know where you're talking about. It's the rural general area there to the
Right.
northwest of the village center is what
okay.
what you're referencing.
not,
And-
yeah,
And I'll note that a lot of that is river corridor in the same vein as the notes relating to Arlington and North Bennington later regarding
Right.
village areas or rural general. So same treatment as there. But yeah, point was
Yeah.
considered.
And I think I made the comment because we're not constrained in terms of mapping village centers with regard to flood hazard areas. And if an area is integral to an existing village center, it could be reflected as village center and not put into a rural general category simply because there was river corridor or flood hazard area there. So that's why I was, yeah, Nick has it right. That's the area in question. And
And
again,
just so
it's
that,
just an advisory recommendation. They can take it or leave it.
just so that, you know, we're not being completely obtuse, I'm gonna share my screen and show that to people.
Yep.
So this map, I'm gonna turn off the legacy village. And I'm gonna turn, so that red that you see is flood hazard. And so this area that we're talking about is here. Right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So most of it is flood hazard, though there is some village area that it doesn't entirely correspond to the flood hazard there, Nick. It's sort of
It
back
corresponds
and forth.
to the river corridor.
Oh, river corridor. Got it.
Yeah, that
I didn't
like
turn
beautiful
that on.
sweeping curve there in the parcel to the north follows the
Yeah.
river corridor line.
Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. Yep.
And again, I don't think it matters whether it's in rural general or village center. Statutorily speaking, it could be either, and it's existing development. So it's sort of, yeah, it feels to me like it could be in village center. But again,
Yeah.
I'm proposing an advisory recommendation. They can take it or leave it.
Yeah, got it.
I'll continue on to Rupert, if everybody's okay.
Yep.
So the Rupert Village Center, we could do the first one is recommend reducing the large expansion to the northeast of the legacy village center, so the proposed village center flu area better matches the land use map and the town plan of Rupert, as well as the zoning. Or we can say there is substantial flood hazard area, or it might be river corridor contained within the legacy village center on which the village center future land use area is centered on. And expansion of the village center is proposed to the northeast of the legacy village outside of the flood hazard area or river corridor. This expansion does not appear to be addressed in the municipal plan or zoning. Please provide additional information. So how strongly do we feel?
So we're
this is
talking about Rupert and we're talking about which village center in Rupert?
the village center, not the east one?
Okay. Well, okay, so there's an east and west.
Are you pulling up the
Well,
map?
no,
for us,
there's a
Janet?
west and there's the village center. So so you mean the main one.
Yes.
And there is, okay. I don't see, you recommend reducing the expansion to the northeast.
Do you see the expansion to the northeast, Janet?
Yes, but I don't see,
You want to
Oh,
share your
okay.
screen, Janet?
no, yeah, okay, I got it now. I thought you were talking about flood hazard there.
No.
I don't know why.
But Sarah, while we're figuring this out, Janet was right that in the document, you refer to the proposed East Rupert Village Center appears to meet statutory standards. It should be West Rupert Village Center, not East. That's what's causing some of the
Oh.
confusion.
Or here, I'll show that just to. This is the Rupert Village Center that you see here. And if you zoom out, you'll see the west down here. So this is the extension to the northeast that you're talking about, Sarah. And is it that we need more information to determine that it complies because currently the town plan doesn't show it as appropriate for center?
Oh, Alex, it was your comment, and so.
Yeah,
Oh.
this is again, one of my, I looked at the town plan and looked at
Yeah.
the proposed FLU and they appear to be substantially different. And, yeah, I would love to be consistent in my own comments, so sorry if
Yeah.
I'm not being that way, with regard to what we just talked about in Peru. Yeah, but here in Rupert, I thought it was at least worthy of the three of us discussing it, since it's a pretty substantial, increase in that direction, you know, more than doubling the existing size of the village center. And the town plan doesn't reflect that, nor does the zoning.
Right, so it seems like to be consistent, we should ask for more information. To be consistent with what we just decided for Dorset, even though maybe we should revisit Peru in the same light.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a scale issue. Like with Dorset, it wasn't just that it was an expansion of an existing village center. It was a brand new village center that was not recognized anywhere else before. I think that really does require additional information per our conversation. Peru was a little different. It was an expansion of their village center that didn't appear to be supported in the town plan, but there were reasons for it, in terms of those wetland areas and such. And the expansion itself didn't seem quite as significant as what's happening here in Rupert. So yes, we could be 100% consistent, go back to Peru and say, give us more information, and say the same for Rupert. Or we can have, you know, nuanced conversation now about whether what's being proposed here in Rupert is fine, and doesn't require that additional information, or that it does.
I think what it's doing here is acknowledging this existing residential, primarily residential development here, and it's using whole parcels instead of not.
I could say that's exactly what my logic was, so thank you, Janet.
You got it, Nick. But
And it just so happens that those parcels are deep and
Large.
therefore, large,
Yeah.
and therefore it appears to be a substantial increase. Well, I definitely see that logic and appreciate it. Nick, thanks for validating Janet's hypothesis.
and it's similar to what's done here in the West Rupert Village Center. Follows the existing development pattern and goes to the full
Yeah, and I
extent
think
of
I
the
had-
parcels.
I know when I reviewed this, I had less issue with the expansion in West Rupert than I did with the expansion in the other Rupert. Maybe just because of the nature of the residential development and the size of the lots.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm interested in our discussion because I'm happy to, you know, show more deference in this one towards what they're looking for. I think that when we talk about village areas, it becomes a little harder
Right.
to give that deference because of the statutory requirements, and village
Right.
centers maybe I don't have to be quite so worried about it.
Yes, I agree.
So perhaps we could treat this Rupert like we did Peru and just delete the language altogether and say it's fine.
I'm going to share my screen now, if you're okay with me
Yep.
going back to. All right. So. Done.
Thanks,
We
Sarah.
can
So,
think about this.
um, So hold on a second. I think we need to clarify, there are two village centers in Rupert. One is the Rupert Village Center and one is the West Rupert.
Just did that.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, and okay,
I'll move on to Sunderland unless anybody has anything in Sandgate or Shaftesbury they wish to discuss. All right, so Sunderland was an advisory recommendation to consider reducing large expansion area to the northeast of It's interesting, these are always northeast expansions to the legacy village center designation to exclude flood hazard and river corridor on the south side of 7A. Is that something you can call up, Janet?
Yep. You want me to show?
Sure, please.
Okay. So, when Sunderland attained its village center designation a couple years ago, originally it included this area that I'm circling with my cursor. Can you see that?
Yes.
And the downtown board even said it probably should include that. And the determination was they can come back for it later, which is what they're getting, I think, trying here. But let me put on the, so this is the area that you're concerned with, right?
Yes.
And let's just,
So this was, to clarify, this was Alex's comment, not mine.
Yeah.
I think, again, this is a legacy village center that has a lot of floodplain, and to me, it was more logical that they're looking to expand it outside of it. But I do think that Alex has a concern about the expansion is inclusive of more floodplain. So I'm not sure how we want to.
Look particularly at the strange proboscis that extends
yeah, that's,
downward. Like what?
I
Why
think
is
that's
that
a-
there?
I think it's a mapping mistake.
Looks like it could
Because
be.
We do,
It
Could we
it
ask
looks like
Nick
they
to-
probably didn't want to include
Uh,
that.
can we ask Nick to weigh in?
I'm happy to kick that right out. That was just a start with whole parcels in the center and then kick out the river corridor, or no, not the river corridor, just the wetlands in this case. So yeah, I'm happy to map that out and a advisor recommendation or I'm happy to take whatever of those. I think that's absolutely something that should be revised out. And but
I think
yeah.
what we're looking at is just this proboscis, as Alex just called it, Nick.
Yeah, that's certainly a legacy of the full parcelization, but we'll
Right.
get rid of that and
And this
clean
is a
line up.
pond here. Or
Yeah, it's fine. I was just focused on the south side of
yeah,
of
okay.
the road. So
this-
Nick has addressed it. We can just reference
Yeah.
that in the response letter, Sarah, and I think we're
Okay.
good. An advisory recommendation.
We're
So
getting,
So I would reword that though. I think it's confusing the way it is. So consider reducing the expanded village center by removing flood hazard on the south side of 7A.
am I okay to move on to PGAs? There are only a
Yeah.
couple. And we have Bennington, Manchester. Manchester, we're good with. Bennington, we have sort of conflicting. I think Alex picked up and said that he felt that the PGA needed to exclude the flood hazard and river corridors, except those contain pre-existing development. I took a look at it as it was within a legacy growth center area and is suitable for infill. So two different takes on it. And then Janet, you added in the language saying board cannot determine.
That's
So
just because of the requested additional information.
Janet, I'm not sure which way.
Which side I fall on? Well, I
Correct.
think we've been pretty consistent, at least starting with Lamoille, that we want the regional commissions to confirm that they are only including infill areas in the PGA because of the way statute is constructed.
But Lamoille was a little bit different. That was not, there are only 6 growth centers within the state. And so to meet the threshold for a growth center, I believe some of that was already historically done. So I think that they can meet this threshold if we request it. It's just a matter of, do we need to request it and put them through that again?
So
Well,
you're saying,
specifically,
Sarah,
Sarah,
that because this was, you're saying that because it was growth center, that they don't need to do that. And I'm just gonna share and show the previous situation here. Shoot, I'm gonna turn off parcels because it's too messy with them. Hold on. Okay. Share screen. So the red, the green hatch is the Legacy Growth Center. So we're talking about this area, these areas that are outside of that Legacy Growth Center, because the statute allows that you can just include the Legacy Center. Is that what you're saying?
So, Alex, do you want to refine this to which areas are you talking about, that northwest section?
Up
so
here?
the area I was actually speaking to was what we saw on the site visit. We arrived at the state office complex and we looked to the north, which was at the very edge of the downtown, the north edge of the downtown. And we looked to the north and said, hey, look at that river corridor. And yes, what's being highlighted. And that's the area that, in my mind, is such a wide and expansive river corridor that there's not going to be any infill there. It's not suitable for infill. And so having a swath of green or whatever other FLU type is appropriate there seems warranted. But I wasn't aware that growth center status tied our hands with regard to the planned growth area designation. So if that's true, then okay, I relent. But if that's not true, then it seems like that area could be removed from the planned growth area. It's not going to get developed anyways. At least the portions where there's no adjacent or nearby existing development. So, for example, sorry, yeah, the area.
Here's the state office complex.
Right. So it's that area where your cursor is right now that seems like it's not suitable for infill,
Right.
which is different than the area to the northwest. If you were to scroll to the northwest, that flood hazard area starts to enter into portions that do have existing development where infill might be appropriate. And so a planned growth area designation does seem appropriate. Sorry, it's a little bit of micromanaging. I know if other board members were here, they might say, we should let the regional commission figure out these places, but I think we did take note of it on the site visit in that one location, so it seemed reasonable to have that be removed from the planned growth area.
Yeah, there is a lot of development in this proposed expansion of the growth area.
I have no issues with
I
that.
recall seeing photos of parking lots completely submerged in water over here. But anyway, I'm okay. Well, I guess we need to understand what the statute says. So, let me just look at it quickly. Let's see, rural.
While you do that, I'm going to go back to the Word doc.
Okay. Oh, let me stop sharing. These areas, they include a mix. These areas include new town centers, downtowns, village centers, growth centers, and neighborhood development areas previously designated under this title. So I think Sarah's right. So I think we don't need to ask them to take it out.
Got it. Thanks for the clarification.
Wait. Why can't I share my file? Let me go back. There we go.
So yeah, we're going to delete all that and revert it back to appears to meet the statutory standards.
And take out the requested or, yeah. Good. Okay,
All right, and Manchester was good. We're moving into village areas now. I think we're doing okay on time, but I am
Yep.
being cognizant of that.
yes, we are. We have 25 minutes remaining.
All right, so I think we're getting close. The board cannot determine whether the Arlington Village Center appears to meet the statutory requirements. That was a change that Janet offered because the additional information requested. So
So,
I
I
agree.
think, okay, so
so this
I'm
was
overruled.
for the village area. I'm just sort of northwest of the main village.
So I think we observed with
Yeah, west
several of
of the
these village
Battenkill.
areas that they're separated from the village centers by flood hazard river corridor, and some of them had fewer connections. So I think what you did here was you made some modifications and said you cannot. And then the other one was the West Dorset Village area. Again, I think we discussed that. Do we feel like this incorporates what we discussed about the village center?
Yeah, or the village area. Yes,
Correct.
not the village center. Yeah.
No, but we previously discussed in the village center section, this portion, and this is that village area that accompanies it. So,
No, it's not.
No,
We
no,
didn't,
no,
no,
that,
this
we
is,
talked about the village center for South Dorset.
right.
Okay.
So I'll just show you what this is,
got it.
Sarah.
This is west, sorry.
West,
Yeah.
yep.
And can I just show you quickly?
Sure.
So here's the Raptor Lane Village, the new village center here that's being proposed. Here's the historic Dorset Village. And I was referring to these areas where the town plan doesn't say anything about future growth in that area. And the zoning is rural, so.
Got it. All right. I'll go back to the dock. And then I think we're in North Bennington. And you made some changes about consider including the expansion. Okay. So do we feel okay
So-
with Janet's?
That's requested additional information, though. Do we feel like that is a necessary? Or is it an advisory recommendation?
Yep.
I think it's advisory, right?
Yep.
So I would take out the board cannot determine whether.
Yeah, this concern was something I had raised with regard to North Bennington.
So along Park Street between 7A, two manufacturing sites, the pre-application meeting explained that while this area could be transition infill, manufacturing sites that have meaningful redevelopment potential were included in village area as opposed to enterprise. So
My
consider
comment.
including this explanation in the plan. That's how I
Right.
interpreted this. Alex, do you feel like you need the plan to change, or do you feel like an advisory recommendation here is okay?
I guess the advisory is okay. There's a consistent thread in my village area comments across this whole region that the walking distance issue is real. And it's less of an issue here. So it's mentioned that, planned pedestrian infrastructure, we'd like some more information, but yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with it as advisory.
Okay,
And I think that this was meant to be advisory information, not requested additional information. So,
is it?
Um,
I don't know. I don't know.
okay, well, let's
Um,
discuss.
I think just because it's zoned rural and the town plan does not indicate any changes for that. Or any, so to me, it seemed like this was ahead of the planning.
We're in Peru
Peru.
now.
Yeah, south of the village center. This is village area. I don't know how it can be village area if 2 and 5 acre minimum lot sizes are required for,
We are looking more at town plans than not supposed to be necessarily looking at zoning. So I
right, but
think
the town plan doesn't suggest any changes to that zoning. There's no future land use changes proposed there in the town
Okay.
plan. So,
So your concern
That's-
is more than it's just zoned as this, it's just,
it's not planned any differently than the way
Right.
it's currently zoned, yeah.
so do we want to say that too, is this area does not appear to be addressed in the town plan or?
Maybe.
Can
Well, we're
can
just
you
asking
point to
for-
the statutory, can you point to the statutory reference that says that this must be the case? I understand the planning, logic behind what you're saying, but where does it say that specifically in the description of village areas? I'm trying to look it up myself right now.
Yeah, I'm looking. Oh, you're right, Alex. It doesn't require planning for that. So it's just advisory, Sarah.
Right. Right. Moving on to Pownell. And Janet, you reworded this to say that we cannot find. Because the additional information for pedestrian connections is needed. How strongly do you feel about that, Alex?
Well, two things. First, Pownell has 3 village centers and therefore 3 village areas, each distinct and associated with a different village center. So I think we need to reword this to recognize which one we have issues with, unless we have issues with all of them.
So can I show the map? And the issues that I had were with this one and this one.
Sorry, Janet,
Because-
can you point those 2 out again? I'm just didn't see
Sorry.
where your cursor was.
So this one in the west central
Is that the north one and then the south?
and this one in the south. And it's not clear to me that there is a connection to the center. In either case.
Yeah, see, it's funny, my comment, wasn't about those areas at all. My comment was about a different area and the lack of, and the length of the walking distance, from the far reaches of the village area to the village center. I thought that the two areas you just pointed out
Thank you.
were relatively proximate. They just happen to be across a river corridor, right?
Right, but not just proximate, there's no way to walk there.
Could we zoom into, could you zoom in into each one
Yeah.
in turn?
Well, this one maybe there is, but does this bridge?
Yes, I think that bridge does have a pedestrian path. You see where it empties out on the other side?
Okay. I guess I
Yeah,
didn't see that before.
I-
Okay, so that one I'm okay with. Let's see the other
Okay.
one. Sorry.
I'll try not to look and get motion sickness.
Yeah, sorry. It's being slow too. Here. Okay, let me just turn some things off for a minute. Oh, not that.
Yeah, you might need to turn the whole FLU
Yeah.
off to see the aerial photo underneath it better.
Yeah. So the bridge is up here. And it is maybe quieter down here than other parts of Pownell. Maybe it feels safe to walk across that and then down here to this area.
That was my feeling when I initially reviewed it, that I wasn't overly concerned about the distance.
Same.
Okay.
Are you okay with me sharing the screen to the,
Still seems
application
a little
response?
far to me. Yeah. But Alex, what is this other area that you're talking about?
Yeah, I gotta find it. I think it's the other,
The other Pownell?
the
Pownell
center?
Center. I go to Google Maps and it tells me there's a North Pownell, there's a Pownell Center, and then there's, Pownell itself. I think it's Pownell Center, which is, yes,
This
the
one.
other one.
Is it
Yeah,
this?
I just got to get back on your same screen here. Yeah, it's that. That's exactly it. That's the one where I'm like, if I'm walking from that area out to the main road, maybe you could zoom in a little bit and turn on the roads base data layer so we can see what kind of highway it is that you're going to be walking down.
Sure, just a minute. Transportation, there it is.
I think it's under base data, actually, not
Oh, it is?
transportation. Yeah,
Oh,
or base
okay.
map.
Roads.
Yeah, so it's Route 7, which is different than that other road that you were talking about in North Pownell, right? Which is a much quieter road.
Right, this is not
Janet,
walk.
would you turn off the flu
Yeah.
coverage for a minute?
Yeah,
Because I think there are some other roads.
well, there's a
It's-
utility line, but that's
But-
the, Jackson is the only road. These are just driveways and a utility line.
That was my concern, Janet. You nailed it. That village area over off of Jackson Cross Road, you got to walk out to Route 7 and then you got to walk down Route 7 a pretty long ways to get to the village center. So just from walking distance standpoint, it doesn't seem to pass my test. That doesn't mean all of that village area needs to be
So,
turned off, but
Is
you
there
know,
an alternative to walking along Route 7? That may be a question. So I would ask for more information.
oh yeah, and in all of these,
Yeah.
it's not like we're saying
Yeah.
we're not putting a rejected
Right.
rubber stamp on it. We're saying
Right.
can't tell, need more information, convince us.
Right. So, is that further than well, yeah, it's Route 7,
Yeah, it's
whereas
both
it's quieter
distance,
down below. Yeah. Okay.
distance and type of road and walking
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah. Okay, Sarah.
All right, so I'll go back to,
So we're only
Sharon.
concerned about the central panel on this, and the other, I can let go of those other two. Especially for west panel.
so I changed it to be clarification and said that the proposed, so we're fine with the proposed north and south, but for the center.
No, it's not north and south, is it? Is it west and south?
No, it's north, south, and center. So
Oh, okay,
you guys
thank
are
you,
all
Nick.
correct on your characterization here. Thank you.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on from Powell now to South Sunderland. And again, I felt like it was, we could do this as an advisory. Janet, you felt like we couldn't determine how,
I didn't have any comments on this.
Yeah, this was me again, and it was a walking distance to go all the way to Chiselville.
so maybe this
And-
is advisory.
I'm not gonna follow my sword with regard to this particular village area. It could be advisory, but it also
It
could be
doesn't look that far to me. Looks pretty close. So I think you might let this one go. Look at it, Alex.
Well, I did look at it and did a lot of measuring, but yes, that was some time ago when I first gave Sarah comments. So I can look at it again, but like I just said, I'm not going to follow my sword on this one.
It's also, there's a bike path or a bike lane on that road, and it's pretty walkable. It's quiet.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe it doesn't require any information then if we just say it's fine.
We're getting close on time, but I think I can get us through just about the rest of it. Transition infill areas. Janet clarified this is advisory recommendation and clarified some information around Arlington. Anything else on transition? Or I can
Keep going.
resource
Unless Alex
recreation.
has something.
Peru, I think we're in good shape. Enterprise areas, I think we're all in good shape. Hamlets, again, we're in good shape. Rural. So, I think
Oop,
it's
I spelled that
Glaston.
wrong. Yep.
Yep. So you just reworded this to say all of them except for Glastonbury. The shell actually
seems-
says to name all of them.
Oh, it does?
Yep.
I think that's sort of weird. Who cares? I don't know.
Think about the final decision and whether it has to be enumerated, but yeah,
I don't think we have to enumerate rural general areas. There's no, I don't know. Seems
it's fine.
strange.
One way or the other, it's
Yeah.
a
All
pre-app
right.
response. We can.
So
Yeah.
Arlington, I wanted to go over, consider mapping flood hazard and river corridors area currently mapped rural general between mapped areas as village centers and village in areas as transition infill instead. So I forget which one of you had that recommendation, but I wanted to highlight that to make sure everybody was on the
Seems
same
good to
page.
me.
I
Okay.
hope it wasn't me because that sentence is hard to understand. But I think I
I
get
don't think it was me. Was it
It
me?
was one of the two of you, but
Who
okay.
knows? Okay.
The reason I say it's hard to understand whether it was me or not is I think I get it. It's saying that if you have a flood hazard or river corridor area that is between a village center and a village area, we recommend that be mapped as transition infill and not rural general. That's what it's saying, right?
Yeah, you could say it like Alex just said it. That would be clearer.
Yeah, we don't need to wordsmith it now as long as we
Okay.
understand the meaning of it.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not married to that whole sentiment to begin with, but it's fine to say it as an advisory recommendation, I guess.
Okay.
Uh,
You'll see that
Yeah.
again. It was, I forget who wrote it, but it was combined in with another municipality, so I had to break it apart. All right, so Janet, you removed the advisory recommendation under Manchester Village?
Yeah, I think, I don't know why we need to force the village um, to make more village area. Is that what being suggested?
This
Um,
is me, and this was me saying, if you look at the map, there's an area that is rural general that is more proximate to the village
Yep.
center than an area that's mapped adjacent to it as village area. And
Right.
like, it doesn't make sense to me, like it should be swapped, but
Well, I
it's a
think
little
it's a
bit
matter of
micromanaging.
existing, I think it's a matter of existing development. And so if you look at Manchester Village here, there's a lot of rural general that abuts the village.
Do you have the map up? Sorry.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah. So look at the pink village area right
This.
right there. Yes, that.
Right.
Why is that village area, but the area to the north and to the west are rural general?
Because this is a golf course.
So zoom in a little bit so you can see the
Yeah.
area to the north. Is the area
Yeah.
to the north a golf course?
No, but it's not, it's a subdivision that's not ever gonna get any denser. See,
But
this
why
is,
why is the area in pink going to get any denser?
they could add a few more condos in there.
Okay, I think that's inconsistent. It's a micro issue, so I'm happy to
Yeah.
let it go. But there's clearly a neighborhood to the north that's in yellow, and there's a neighborhood to the south in pink. And I think you could argue that infill could happen in either of them, and so they probably ought to be mapped the same. Or
I agree with Alex, and I think we can ask for the, put it as advisory.
Okay.
All right, sorry, when I minimize the Word doc so I can see what you guys are doing, it makes it go away on me, so hang on. All right, so. Right, North Bennington. And this was the same thing, basically consider it as transition infill instead of rural general.
Right.
And
And
then-
so Alex is just asking it to be reworded to be clearer.
Right,
So,
yeah,
Okay.
you don't need to do that now, but
correct. All right, Stanford, you had a comment, Janet. This is probably wants it that way. All right.
can you go back to what the actual yeah, this was my comment. So yeah, if the two of you are like, hey, the town wants it that way, you don't need to get in there. You don't need to be in the face about it. That's fine.
No, I added it in. I added in, I didn't highlight it because I agreed with it. But Janet had the comment. And I think your comment was just, that's perhaps what the town wants, but I think we can ask for the additional information.
Yeah, it's just the
Jen.
formatting is awkward, right? Because normally, like Janet said, when we ask for additional information, it's because we determined that we couldn't determine
Right,
whether it
I think this
met
is
the.
advisory.
Yeah, maybe just change the header, subheader, yeah, advisory.
yeah.
Okay. All right, we're getting close on time, but I think I can get through the rest of this. We have rural ag. And Janet, you reworded this, but
Yeah,
I think I
what she
have
can
to,
take it back. Yeah.
right,
Reject it.
right. Come on.
It's all municipalities in the region. I don't think, it just
Yeah,
seems silly to make a list. It, you
Well,
know,
as I
is
said,
that
that's
all
a
of them?
larger,
You know?
that's a larger shell issue. And then I think the
Yeah.
last thing that Janet did was she added this language, which I appreciated here at the end.
Yes, I was
all
gonna
right.
recommend the same, so thank you for typing it up, Janet.
So I think what I'd like to do is clean this up. We have time tomorrow to discuss this. And
Tomorrow?
yes.
Yeah, we called a
Oh, we
special
made
meeting
an
for
extra
tomorrow.
meeting. Right.
So
Okay.
we could do one or two things. Is either you can approve it with these changes, or I can endeavor to make the changes and
Let's
try and
have
get it.
you endeavor to make the changes and we can approve it after we see them. Since we're
Right.
at 3:05 and we have to call Brooke back.
All right, so we'll have the meeting tomorrow and I'll try and get out. I don't think I'll get it posted online, but I can go over the changes tomorrow briefly and,
On screen.
yep,
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
Record time, Sarah. Well done.
Yeah. So we have to call Brooke back. Let me
So-
do that.
Well, you're calling Brooke
People.
back, just I will say too is, just I appreciate the Bennington County, Regional Planning Commission. I think the whole site visit and meeting, was very smooth and think it speaks to the thoroughness and accuracy of the team. I think they have a really good team that spoke very well to, and you even heard it today, Nick was recalling things off the top of his head, with different areas and which parcels were included and how, so, just want to pass along my kudos to BCRC.
Thanks, Sarah. Um, huh. It's not letting me call her from the thing here.
Well, while you're doing it that way, I'll just text her.
Okay. Shoot. Oh, I am calling. I see. Oh, here she is. Brooke, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, and I think when I called you, I accidentally did not call you as a presenter, but only as an attendee. So if we need to present, we may need to change the setting.
Okay.
So just FYI. Okay, let's go to our agenda, which is, we are at item I, discussion of appeals, enforcement, and attorney-client communications. It's for a proposed executive session. Do we have a motion to go into executive session? Brooke?
I would move that the board enter executive session to discuss pending and probable appeals and enforcement actions and to have confidential attorney-client communications on these and possible other matters, and move that the board find that premature public knowledge of these matters would place the board at a substantial disadvantage.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, all those in favor, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote again. I'm Janet Hurley. My vote is aye, yes. Brooke Dingeldine,
Dingeldine votes aye. Yes.
Alex Weinhagen,
This is Alex.
and Sarah Had.
Sarah Had, I vote aye.
Thank you. We are now going to enter into executive session, and we will return to this public portion of the meeting to report out as soon as we are complete with the executive session discussion. Thank you. Oh, Sarah, you're quick. Okay, we are back. We are still recording. So we were in executive session and we have a few motions to make. Brooke,
I'd like to move to authorize enforcement to close investigation 2026_038 as no new activities occurred since the last investigation for the same location was closed.
okay,
I'll
thank you.
second that.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Brooke Dingeldine,
Dingeldine votes aye.
Sarah Had,
Sarah Had votes aye.
Alex Weinhagen,
This is Alex. I vote in the affirmative, yes.
and Janet Hurley. I vote in the affirmative as well, so that is unanimous. Next,
I have a motion.
thank you, Alex.
I move that the board authorize enforcement to transmit a proposed assurance of discontinuance in enforcement case 2025_078, directing the respondent to rectify the incomplete land use permit application, pay a $3,000 civil penalty, and reimburse the Land Use Review Board $675.86 in enforcement costs.
Thank you, Alex.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brooke. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Alex,
Alex, aye in the affirmative.
that was Alex Weinhagen. Sarah Had,
Sarah Had aye.
thank you, Sarah. Brooke Dingeldine,
Dingeldine aye.
and Janet Hurley, that is me. I vote in the affirmative as well. That motion passes unanimously. In the next case that we have a motion for, I am recused. I'm going to allow Sarah to facilitate that vote.
So I will start
And
by
motion.
proposing, I move to authorize enforcement to transmit a final citation to the respondents in enforcement case 2024_050.
I'll second.
All right, Brooke second. I'll do a roll call vote. Sarah Had, I vote aye. Brooke,
Brooke Dingeldine aye.
Alex,
Alex Weinhagen, aye.
and Janet Hurley is recused
So I abstain.
or abstained.
Janet Hurley
So,
abstains.
all right, so the motion passes 3-0 with one abstention. All right, I'll turn it back to Janet.
Thank you. Well, I think we only have one item left on our agenda. But is there any public? Annette, you're with us, and do you have any comment for us today? Maybe not. Okay. Annette, if you have comment for us, we'll catch you the next time. So last item on the agenda is to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Brooke.
Second.
Thank you, Alex. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. 4 of us, all 4 of us. So thank you, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.